Morning, everyone. How are we doing? Good, good. We had a bit of a woo. That's a brilliant start. Listen, RecFest is absolutely my favorite event of the year. Reason why is because it is a fest. It's a festival. And I see it as basically the annual potlatch of the recruitment industry, where everyone gets the opportunity to step away from the computer, step away from the workaday of business operations, and just get together and meet people. Thank you very much, Chris. And you're going to learn so much from the people that you meet sort of out there, as much as you might do listening to people like me on here. So make sure you make most of the day by connecting and chatting and being the first to say hello. Don't be the person sitting there and waiting for someone else to grab you. All right? So, RecFest, 10 things we know about AI is in TA. I'm going to start off by saying you should scan me if you haven't done so already. Basically, everything you're about to hear goes into my weekly newsletter on Sunday. The newsletter is free and paid for. You've got a choice straight away. However, they're both the same, so don't pay for it, okay? Free. Just go free. But you get it every day for free on Sunday. I think it's worth your while. It's not my content, it's your content. I share what you've shared to me, and I just synthesize it and spread it to you. So free for you to be educated on this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about AI today, AI and TA. And I've starting my talks with a little bit about, who are the people that end up talking a lot about AI? Like, who are the narrators of artificial intelligence? What are the narrative archetypes? And I think it's quite important we think about who those people are, because we need to locate what they say in terms of how they see the world. So narrative archetypes, I think they've got three types. You've got the AI optimist. Okay? This is the person that thinks, you know what, AI is going to change the world in a way which we've never seen it before. They're going to point to things like, we've got the AI pessimist. We've got the person who basically feels, you know what, it's going to be more dangerous than the optimists think. Then finally, we have the AI skeptic, which says, you know what, it's not all that. So let's spend a bit of time on each of these characters. AI optimist, this is the person that points at the evaluations that AI sort of does and says, you know what, every single year the charts seem to be pointing northeast. It looks like it's going to have this huge forever sort of journey where essentially artificial intelligence gets better and better. It's surely going to change everything we do. They're going to point at job changes, the speculation that millions of jobs will change, millions of jobs will be generated. You're going to listen to people like this who say, you know what, we know how to build artificial general intelligence. This is an intelligence which is superior to a human being, and in fact may replace a lot of work that human beings do. And then I'm going to say, you know what, that's going to unlock this utopia moment where abundance for all is the default because artificial intelligence is going to do all the work and solve all the problems. It's generally the AI optimist, right? AI pessimist basically says, you know what, the optimist overestimates how difficult technology revolutions are. They always talk about the Industrial Revolution as a pointer to say, hey, everything went well afterwards, but they forget that the people who wrote the history are the ones that won it. What about the people that lost it? What about the people who get destroyed by technology innovation? We don't hear their stories. Maybe we should pay attention to our own history. And they say, you know what, the disruption this time is going to be such, it's going to lead to what happened after the Industrial Revolution. Have we forgot about the revolutions that occurred as a result of this displacement? Maybe we're already seeing evidence of this, particularly at the youth level, where we have a hiring crisis at the early entry moment. And finally, they agree with the AI optimists to say, you know what, maybe AGI is achieved, but do we actually want to do that? Do we actually want to create a competitor intelligence to humanity? Like, what are we actually doing? What's the purpose for this? Then you have the skeptic. And the skeptic will say, you know what, all of this is going to make a difference, but you know what, we have seen these revolutions before, and they always have a little less of an apocalyptic or a utopic impact than the people saying had promoted it previously. It will be disruptive, but it will absorb it, and it's going to be okay. They'll point to things like, hey, listen, we've had AI for 3 years now, but productivity gains at the institutional level doesn't seem to be apparent. Lots of companies are saying 95% of companies surveyed said, 100% of companies surveyed said, you know what, we've deployed an AI program. About 2 to 5% have said, actually, we've seen confirmed and measurable gains from that program. So maybe it's not landing in the way in which people have advertised. AI makes a ton of mistakes, and those mistakes are bleeding into productivity that costs money that needs to be pulled back. And there is a concern that perhaps maybe it's all a bit of a bubble. Are any of the AI companies actually making any money? It seems that they're not. And in fact, perhaps they're overly subsidizing the services that we receive with debt-based financing, with VC-based financing, and in fact, the numbers don't actually work as a viable business. And there's also a technical argument, which says, you know what, AI may get there, but the journey that we've gone down so far via the large language model route isn't the path to take. And the reason why is because language itself is a model. It's not reality. And as these guys will say, you don't go out into nature and see words written in the sky. You need world models for AI. You don't need LLMs. So anyway, they're the 3 characters. Now, for me, I swing between each of these characters every day in terms of where I feel about artificial intelligence. And for a long time, I was kind of disturbed by that. I was thinking, okay, how can't I find what is actually going on? How do I settle on a position? But then I realized, you know what? It's actually a good thing that I can't settle on what is true, because it tells me that no one knows what the truth is. And it tells me that you have a lot of very intelligent people making a lot of cogent arguments, but they're all disagreeing on things. That tells me that the future is still there to be shaped, and we as human beings have got the opportunity to influence and shape that. That gives me optimism. So, let's talk about this talk. There's going to be impact on AI on the 4 dimensions. Firstly, impact on employment, impact on organizations, impact on individuals, and then what we as TA are going to do about all that. So firstly, impact on employment. It's confused and complicated, right? Contradictory messaging is what we experience of what AI is doing to employment. Is it destroying jobs? Is it producing jobs? You read a different newspaper, a different article, you'll actually hear arguments either side. However, there are some jobs that are definitely directly disrupted. So you look at things like reports from Upwork, for instance, where they've tracked and correlated spikes of activity and declines of activity in things like copywriting, language translation, graphic design. That's collapsed on gig working platforms because guess what? ChatGPT, Gen AI can actually do that work. So kind of low volume, tightly defined, digital output type work, it's getting eaten a little bit by AI. However, stability across the so-called AI exposed roles seems to be quite steady. This is latest data from LinkedIn. I think they released that only a week ago. And they're basically saying, you know what, this is UK data, by the way. You can see, obviously, UK is having a tough time. But the 3 lines that they're looking at is the difference of the jobs based on their level of exposure to AI. And theoretically, if you have high exposure to AI, we should see a collapse of those jobs if AI is actually eating it up. And you can see that's not really happening. So it's stable, right? We're all suffering, but actually stability seems to be the name of the game. And there's also labor shortage, persistent labor shortage in jobs that have always been least exposed. These are the frontier, sort of the frontline workers, if you remember that in the pandemic era. And there seems to be new roles emerging. So perhaps we are seeing some evidence that AI is a job creator rather than a job killer. So it is confused and remains confused. One way to think about it, though, is to think about jobs as kind of tasks versus jobs. So what is a job really? You can think of a job as basically an aggregation of a bunch of tasks. If you think of what recruitment is, or TA is, it is a job, but it's a list of tasks. I think Johnny Campbell actually, once upon a time, audited this, and he came out with something like 150 things that AI, sort of a recruiter does. All of these are individual tasks. And some tasks can become jobs, by the way, and some jobs can become tasks. The direction of travel is basically based on demand and based on the technology that might unlock that. Good example, in fact, is stuff that we do. Remember back in the day, HR, we were all in HR, and then TA came out of HR, and it was a task that HR did before it established its own independent identity about 20 years or so ago. And then further tasks that went on their own journey to become its own sort of jobs in a period of time. That can go either direction. So jobs can become tasks, tasks can become jobs, but tasks can also be folded back into jobs based on external situation. So the question we've got to think about when it comes to disruption is what tasks are extractable from the job? Can they be isolated? Can they be pulled out? And can you apply technology to it? And if so, chances are that task might be completely automated. And if your job contains a lot of those extractable tasks, then there's a good chance that your job at some point will become subject to disruption. However, most jobs are quite messy, meaning they're full of tasks that they cannot be extracted and therefore are resilient to AI disruption. Good example here is radiology. I don't know whether anybody ever saw or tracked the radiology sort of career path, but it's a really interesting case study of a messy job. So AI was one of the first sort of, radiology was one of the first places where AI was applied. This is a report from 2022, and AI was so good at basically scanning X-rays that it was able to identify information on those X-rays that a human being could never identify, namely the ethnicity of the person being scanned. And they still don't quite know how they can do that, but it was something like a 98% accuracy that they could tell you what the race of the person was the AI could tell you the race of the person. And it was just these microscopic differences, maybe in bone structure, maybe in bone density, maybe in something which we still don't explain, that can tell you this. Human being cannot do that by eye. And obviously everyone thought, you know what, here's a clear example where AI is better than a human at this task that should be a job. What does a radiologist do? They basically look at X-rays and make assessments. Surely AI is going to disrupt this. Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of AI, even said, you know what, you've got to stop training radiologists because AI obviously can do this better, and you're wasting people's time by putting them into this career path. It's over. And you can see here that actually AI technology was deployed heavily into medical services and mostly in radiology. So the distribution of artificial intelligence into radiology was actually quite profound. So here is a brilliant case study. What should happen is that the jobs for radiologists should collapse because AI is doing it all. Yet what we've seen is not that at all. Radiology jobs are actually robust. All of the jobs that are being open are actually being filled, and the demand for radiologists has actually increased because actually AI is being able to do the scanning more efficiently, which has created sort of more capability to do more X-rays, and more people are needed to be recruited. And it turns out that obviously a radiologist does more than just sit there and look at X-rays. They are deeply embedded in a social system. Firstly, they're in a hospital. Hospital's a mess, right? They're doing lots more than just reading the X-ray. They're firing it through. They're building relationships with other people, building relationships with all the stakeholders involved in the medical services. And of course, it's embodied. They're physically there. They're physically oftentimes moving the X-ray by hand. So there's 3 more E's that we've got to think about. Basically, is the job enmeshed? Is the task enmeshed in other tasks that cannot be extracted? Is it embedded in a social network or a social system? And is it embodied, i.e. still needs a physical human being to carry that intelligence around? If yes on all 3, basically means AI is not going to necessarily disrupt that job, but may in fact augment the person doing it and could increase the demand for that work. However, the however is that basically the direction of travel is that companies want to do more AI and less hiring. Okay, that's the hard facts. That's the purpose of artificial intelligence when you think about it, is all about productivity, correct? Been hearing a productivity story for 3 years now. You should ask the question, what is productivity? How do people understand productivity? It's a very simple formula. It is the total output your business creates divided by the total number of labor hours involved, right? So you either increase the output or you reduce the labor hours, you get a higher productivity number. AI apparently is going to do both of those things. When the VCs talk about the $4 trillion opportunity, and why they're piling money into AI businesses, what are they talking about? They're talking about payroll, folks, right? The $4 trillion is white-collar payroll that they think can be replaced by a SaaS service. That's the opportunity that's being referred to here. You can see here. CEOs love AI, right? I'll ask you the question. Who's the biggest cheerleader in your business for artificial intelligence? Guarantee you it's a guy with the title with the C at the front of it. They love it because they can see the productivity gains. And you can't hate the CEO for this, because that's their job. Their job is to increase revenue, increase productivity, build a more competitive business. If they weren't loving AI, they'd be out of a job. And in fact, there's some stats to say that a lot of CEOs feel that they need to, quote unquote, get AI right, otherwise their own job is on the line. So we have this top-down pressure to AI enable and AI adopt. Obviously, we have the external situation. I call it the VUCA macro. VUCA stands for volatile, unpredictable, I think chaotic, and something else. But basically, it is a world where CEOs can no longer be confident on their strategy. It's too chaotic. Something can happen in a moment which changes your strategy from a good one to a bad one, basically via rage tweet, right? If you're a CEO running a business under those conditions, what you're going to do is you're going to shift a lot of your fixed cost into variable cost, even if that variable cost is higher at the time, because you don't want to be carrying a lot of weight into a chaotic system. So what AI really is doing, I know we're saying one of the sort of the narratives is, you know what, AI is not necessarily destroying jobs because it's really AI washing. There's other reasons why people are being cut. I think argument is okay. I'm not fully convinced on it. But what people are not talking about is what artificial intelligence really does is something called demand destruction. Right? It reduces the hiring need, and it forces the CEO to think, you know what, instead of signing off 100 heads, I'm going to sign off 25, because I'm confident at least on the 25. We're just going to wait 3 months to see what else is going to happen in this world before we do anything more. So it slows down hiring, which is why we have a low-fire economy, and it basically looks like that. Right? It's tough times for everybody. If you're in a job market today, this chart will resonate with you. Okay, so you can see I'm segueing into the pessimist view, right? The pessimist narrative, I've kind of fallen into that. All right. What does it mean, impact on organizations? Thankfully, it's a lot simpler. It's much clearer what the impact of AI on organizations. It is basically to flatten the pyramid. Where a previous pyramid would be senior exec at the top, bunch of managers in the middle, and then a load of workers at the bottom. That's the fixed structure. Theory is, you know what, it's going to be a fat diamond instead. You're still going to have the people at the top. You're going to have less people in the middle, less people at the bottom, but you're going to have a load of individual contributors that are going to be doing the work. This graphic, by the way, was, I think, something like 30 years ago, so this is not a new idea. This is a general concept that, yes, robotics and artificial intelligence is going to displace a lot of human work, and it will look basically like a diamond. Oh, we've got 10 minutes. I think that's true. However, I think we also underestimate the size of the diamond. And the reason why I think this is because we kind of got to think why a pyramid exists in the first place. A pyramid exists for two reasons. It's there to basically scale capacity, and it's also there to solve the problem that scaling capacity produces, and you do that by solving the coordination problem. You look at the original pyramids, right? If I need to build the pyramids of Giza, I'm going to need 100,000 people to do the pyramids of Giza. But if the Pharaoh called 100,000 people and said, hey, listen, let's build the pyramids, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be complete chaos. It'll be a mob scene, similar to what you see out there on Wreckfest, right? Uncontrolled chaos. Why? Because there's a biological limit to how many conversations one human being can have, right? There's an information problem. We've got basically 2 ears and 1 mouth. And if you think about the biological constraints of that, it means we have a limited number of people we can ever talk to before the information problem becomes too large. You have 100,000 people, you need to divide those people up into 10,000 teams, right? 10,000 teams of 10 people. And that's still too much, because you can't have 10,000 reports. You need to have another layer of management. And you need to keep layering up until the Pharaoh gets 10 people to report to. And that's why you have the pyramid. You basically you need to build the human pyramid in order to build the real pyramid. Now what AI is going to do is basically erode both those things. It's going to replace capacity in large part, and it's going to solve the coordination problem on the second part. TA, by the way, and HR grew up by building, maintaining, and supporting the pyramid. So it's a big moment for us. Okay, what is the intelligent organization? Everyone know Jack Dorsey? Jack Dorsey, former founder of Twitter, sort of leader now of Block. He basically said, we're going to replace hierarchy with intelligence. What it means there, he's going to try and remove all of the middle management and replace it with artificial intelligence. Something that looks like that, where all of the work is digitally monitored, all of it goes into AI agents that then produce the dashboards on the fly. When you have an artificial intelligence giving you the intelligence to make decisions, you don't necessarily need that coordination layer, all of that middle management. That's the theory, right? The theory is what the middle management does is route information up and down and sideways on that pyramid. But actually AI can do that if I record what everyone's doing. Maybe I don't need all of that pyramid. This is why Meta rolled out a policy to say all of the people that we haven't fired, we're all going to actually track your digital activity, all of it. All of your keystrokes, all of your chats, all of the documents you produce, that's going to be fed into artificial intelligence, because we're going to create this intelligent organization. Cause a storm, right? A lot of people say, what the heck are you doing? This is one of the defining images, I think, of the moment. It's a young lady in Chennai who is basically recording her daily life with an iPhone strapped to her head. And what that iPhone is doing is recording how to peel a potato, how to fold laundry, how to live her life. That's going to train an AI model that will replace her job. Now, this lady in Chennai is no different from the people in Silicon Valley at Facebook, other than maybe a couple $100,000 of comp, right? But we're all being forced to train artificial intelligence to basically replace our jobs. Coming to an employment contract to you. Have a monitor of it. We are TA and HR. Are you getting that conversation where you're going to start inserting clauses to say you're going to be training AI that's part of the job? Okay. This talk gets less depressing, I assure you. But there's still, we haven't hit rock bottom yet, because here's rock bottom. AI and Anthropic are saying, you know what, guys? We're going to help do AI for you, set up 2 business units, and they're going to say, you know what? We're going to forward deploy AI to your business. Not only are we going to sell you the intelligence, but we're going to build the agents that are going to suck up that intelligence. Now, I think that this is hugely problematic for everyone that is not Anthropic or OpenAI. Why? Because they're basically going to take your IP. Not only going to take your IP, you're going to pay them for migrating the IP across. You know, if you're relying on technology providers like this to do your forecasting, to do your intelligence, they're metering your business to you. You're basically giving it back. You've given it to them so that they can rent it back to you. It's happening. And it reminded me very much of this moment where, yes, it's going to give you superpowers, but are you actually still in control if you go down this route? Answer is on a postcard. Okay, I've got limited time, but the backlash of AI is beginning. You can see people being booed, very famous people, and you're seeing people who are also workers who are also striking against it. But we have to move on. Okay, impact on individuals. Number one, it's increasing output. That's for sure, right? everyone who's using AI is already thinking, you know what, it's increasing the amount of stuff I'm doing. Everyone feels that. At 10%, 20%, even 100%, it's increasing your output. You have Josh Burstead saying, you know what, the future is the AI super worker, meaning everyone in the room will manage a fleet of AI agents that's going to do the work of a full department. That is going to be great for those people who do that. And TA, by the way, is increasing productivity. There's some really good data to show that. Our friends at Greenhouse, go and see them, by the way, come up with some really good data to compare the period of 2022 to 2025 compared to 2026. And they've seen that basically all of the metrics have gone up in terms of workload for a recruiter, but also so have the number of hires. The only thing that's gone down is actually the number of recruiters. So we're doing more, we're delivering more with less people. When we were being told, let's do more with less, actually recruiters have responded, and we are doing that. This is AI doing good for us. However, there is a lot of AI slop out there. And there is a weird paradox behind why is it an individual can get super productive, but it doesn't work at an organizational, institutional level? And the answer, by the way, is quite straightforward. It's because your output is someone else's input. I had a really good conversation with a compliance, sort of a CEO who had a compliance offer in his organization who recently became AI pilled. And what happened was, number one, initially they were delighted by that because this person was operating at times, to the level of effectiveness. But then they quickly realized that they weren't shipping anything because of the volume of stop notices coming from the compliance officer. The system couldn't absorb the output of the individual, which is why organizationally we're not seeing the productivity. And the only answer, by the way, is to actually deploy more AI to absorb that. And over time, the human in the loop becomes a human in the way. Right? Which is also why maybe the best format for artificial intelligence is to just go and do it yourself. A solopreneur without the constraints of an organization, they're the second most sort of strongest endorsers of AI because they're not encumbered and all of their output goes directly into the market as marketing. Okay. So the pyramid turns into diamonds, and the diamond probably shards into different groups because it makes more sense for an individual department of one rather than having a big department that operates as a fixed pyramid. Okay, I've got 2 minutes to talk about what this means for TA. I don't think it's terrible things for TA, by the way, but it does mean significant change because we grew up and evolved to support a pyramid that's no longer going to be the default model of how organizations are going to be put together. So number one, smaller, less discrete organizations. Discrete meaning there's a barrier between the business and what is not the business. That's going to be less discrete. What this means is that there's less hiring, but the hires that a company does commit to are going to be more important. It also means that TA needs to expand its view. It needs to think beyond just the payroll and think about the total talent universe that ever interacts with your business. And it's also got to expand even further to think, what if automation is the answer and not the hire? Let's have a look at these real quick. Number one, less strategic. Juicebox are here. David Paffenholz, I think, might be here as well. He made a very interesting observation, which I agree with. Maybe TA rolls all the way back to pre-digital, and it turns into something looking a little bit more like exec search. Deep talent mapping, deep talent marketplace mapping, succession planning, relationships with people that you're going to hire in 2 years' time, not in 2 weeks' time. Total talent universe, we know all about this. This is people who are not on payroll. And human or automation. Can we stay in the room if the decision to hire is not made? This is a job spec created by a friend of mine 3 years ago. And she said, you know what? I think we're going to see a chief automation officer. If you look at the bullet points of that job, you'll actually find it's a lot of the stuff that we do. And some of us are starting to do it, right? So we're starting to see the job of TA expand beyond TA and think about business enablement. Okay, TA plus, this is where we've got to go. little bit of research from RecFest RL100, and you can see the leaders of our organizations are already saying we're expanding scope. This is the direction of travel. Not going to let TA go, but we're going to expand scope into other areas of work. Proximity to the business, proximity to value. Whether AI is good or bad for you really depends on your proximity to whether you own the business or not. Very quickly, I have a snapshot of that. Ted Chiang wrote a very interesting and readable essay on AI in 2023 called Will AI Become the New McKinsey? It remains to this day the best thing I've read about artificial intelligence. And it asks a very simple question. Why does technology never deliver us free time? That's the promise, right? Technology is going to give us free time. It's going to take the workload away. Why is it that it never happens and we're all busier than ever before? We're actually all burning out with all of this technology, including now with AI. The answer is pretty straightforward. It is because the value created by artificial intelligence isn't captured by us. It's captured by the people who own the business. That's why the CEO loves it. That's also why the solo entrepreneur loves it, because they capture all of the value for productivity. We as employees, we don't capture that, which means there's a bunch of implications for us. Firstly, if you're an employee of a business that's being told we need to adopt AI, you need to argue for a keep what you kill policy. Keep what you kill policy is quite straightforward. It's basically a direct argument to say, I will automate this process for you, but all of the time saved, I get back. It doesn't go to your business. It goes back to us, and we invest it as we see fit. You can unionize as well. I don't know whether everyone saw this, but Samsung workers all of them got something like 300,000 bonus because they went on strike to say, we want a part of the value that the corporate is capturing. Okay. We've got to kill some good ideas that have gone bad, I'm afraid. There's a lot of ideas that used to be good during the pyramid days that no longer work for us. For example, remote working. Everyone loves remote working. I work remotely. It's great. I'm a solopreneur. I can get away with it. But if you're an employee of a business, remote working is your stepping stone to being made redundant. You have to roll back to the office for your own good. Everyone's a data-driven decision maker, right? We all love data-driven decisions. I think that's true. But we can't lean on data-driven decisions alone because we're never going to outprocess AI when it comes to data. Right? Skills-based hiring, bad idea. Say it right out. Why? Because it basically disaggregates a job and it makes it more easy to automate. We have to keep jobs human. We have to keep them messy. That means no to skills-based hiring. We have to rehabilitate some bad ideas that have gone good, right? Human instinct, human judgment, we talk about that. What's the line between human judgment and cognitive bias? There isn't one. It's just politics. We need to bring back judgment, and that means we need to respect human instinct. Okay, nearly there. Local AI on-premise, I think this is our way out. And if there's a positive note for you, I'll leave it with this point. Local AI, I think, helps TA return to what it was. And the reason why is because it retains your IP. It doesn't go into the cloud. It keeps the organization intelligence that your boss is trying to train, it keeps it on-premise. That means you've got to protect that premise. It's more secure data-wise. There's no single vendor lock-in. Anthropic can't just cut you off. How are you meant to build a business when a SaaS provider can just say, by the way, I don't think this is secure for you. If you have it downloaded to local, you can use it. Safer for vibe coding. Who here has done some vibe coding? A lot of us, right? Totally unsafe if it's in the cloud. It's only safe if it's local and on-premise. It builds the IT department 2.0, which means we're going to recruit server engineers, database administrators again. This goes back to what we used to do in TA. Finally, it means that your AI is your business's AI and not in the cloud somewhere and being rented back for you. Okay, final point. You have to cultivate implicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge is the information that we share as human beings in a group. This is the information you're going to share after this talk. It's information that exists within the business, that isn't documented and not recorded. At the end of the day, artificial intelligence is here. We know the future is going to be hybrid, but the competitive advantage we have is going to be collective or community intelligence, and we absolutely have to defend that. Thank you very much, everybody.